It was an unusually warm Saturday morning, and my mom had been itching to get out of the house. After spending most of the week inside due to her disability, she wanted nothing more than to feel the sun on her face and get some fresh air. She had a new wheelchair, lightweight and comfortable, and I had promised her we could go to the local park for a short stroll. "Are you sure you want to go today, Mom? You've been resting a lot this week," I asked, adjusting her jacket to keep her warm. "I'm fine, sweetie. I just want to get out for a bit. I promise I won't overdo it," she replied, her smile bright and hopeful. I nodded, helping her into the car, and we drove the short distance to the park. It was a peaceful morning, with the sun just beginning to rise higher in the sky, casting a golden glow on the paths and benches. It was exactly what my mom needed, some quiet time in nature to recharge. As we approached the park's entrance, I saw Karen. Of course, I recognized her instantly. She was the president of the Homeowners Association, HOA, in our neighborhood. We had crossed paths more times than I could count, but each encounter had been filled with petty complaints or passive-aggressive remarks. She was the type of person who liked to control everything, from how we maintained our lawn to how our property looked. And now here she was, in the middle of the park, with that same judgmental look plastered on her face. I hoped we could enjoy our time at the park without her interfering, but it was clear that wasn't going to happen. "Hey, Karen," I said politely, even though I knew she wouldn't return the greeting with kindness. "We're just here for a little fresh air. Nothing too crazy." But Karen was already looking at my mom, eyes narrowing as she examined her wheelchair. "Is she really going to be out here in that thing?" Karen asked, her voice dripping with disdain. I bristled, trying to ignore her provocation. "Yes, Karen, she is. She deserves to be out here, just like anyone else." Karen stepped closer, her eyes scanning my mom like she was some kind of inconvenience. "You know, that wheelchair looks like a hazard. Maybe you should just stay home instead of putting yourself in danger." Before I could respond, my mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair, clearly not enjoying the tension that was building. "Let's just go, honey. I don't want to cause a scene," she whispered to me, her voice full of concern. But Karen wasn't done. She took a step forward and reached out, her hands pushing against the wheelchair's armrests as if she was trying to move my mom herself. "What do you think you're doing?" I snapped, stepping in between them. "Leave my mom alone." Karen didn't back off. "She shouldn't be out here in the first place. You're enabling her," she sneered. "Maybe if you actually took care of her better, she wouldn't need to be in a wheelchair." That was it. The final straw. I couldn't stand hearing another word of Karen's venomous attitude, especially not when it came to my mom's condition. "Karen, you need to stop right now. You're crossing a line." But she wasn't listening. In a move that took me completely off guard, Karen shoved against the wheelchair with both hands, knocking it off balance. My mom gasped as the chair tipped sideways, and before I could catch her, she fell to the ground, her arms twisting awkwardly as they hit the pavement. "Mom!" I shouted, rushing to her side. My heart pounded in my chest as I checked her arms, panic rising in me. Her left arm was bent at an unnatural angle, and her right arm was scraped badly from the fall. Tears welled in her eyes as she winced in pain. Karen stood there, watching the scene unfold without an ounce of remorse. "Maybe this will teach you to listen," she said, her voice cold and cruel. "I'm just trying to help her see that she's better off staying home." That's when the rage hit me like a wave. This woman had just physically harmed my mother, and she was standing there acting like it was nothing. I knelt down beside my mom, trying to comfort her, but my mind was already racing. I pulled out my phone and dialed the emergency line. "I need an ambulance at the park now. My mother has been injured," I said, keeping my voice as steady as possible, despite the overwhelming anger and worry. Karen hadn't moved, still standing a few feet away, her arms crossed as if nothing was wrong. "Don't think you're getting away with this, Karen," I said, my voice low and controlled. "You've just assaulted my mother. You'll be facing charges." Her face went pale as she finally realized who she was dealing with. "You're the police chief?" she stammered, her eyes widening in shock. "That's right," I said, standing up and staring her down. "And now, you're going to pay for what you've done." As I waited for the ambulance to arrive, I watched Karen start to squirm. She was clearly not used to being on the receiving end of this kind of authority. She had always thought she could get away with her behavior because she was in charge of the HOA, but now she was facing the consequences of her actions. When the paramedics arrived, they quickly assessed my mom's injuries and carefully splinted her arms before taking her to the hospital. My heart broke watching her in so much pain, but I stayed focused on the task at hand, making sure Karen was held accountable. I immediately called my officers to report the incident. I was no longer just a concerned son. I was the police chief, and Karen's actions would not go unpunished. She had physically harmed my mother, and that was a crime. Karen tried to apologize, but it was too late. My officers arrived and took her into custody. She was charged with assault, and the HOA quickly removed her from her position. As I sat in the hospital waiting room with my mom, holding her hand as she recovered, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: anger, relief, and even a bit of sadness. No one should ever have to go through what we had just endured, especially at the hands of someone who was supposed to be an authority figure. But in the end, I knew one thing for sure. I would do whatever it took to protect my family. And when it came to my mom, no one, not even an HOA president, was going to get away with hurting her.